All right, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining me. This is your host, ID Jester, and welcome to Tabletop Simulator. Tabletop Simulator is a simulation game of tabletop games, board games. You know I love my board games, strategy games, and we are going to be playing the brand new living card game by Fantasy Flight called Arkham Horror, the Living Card Game. Uh, so this has just been released recently, not too long ago. And I've been watching videos on how to play and getting all that under my belt. And now some individuals have set it up inside a tabletop simulator so we can try it and check it out, see how it plays. We're going to be going over in this episode how to basically play the game. I'm not going to show you how to set up things inside of Tabletop Simulator. I take no credit for this whatsoever, as someone else had actually created this setup. I just did some minor changes to the way the layout of the board and just maneuvered things around a little bit. And that's it. So basically, downloaded it. You can purchase Tabletop Simulator on Steam, download all kinds of free games. This one here, like I said, happened to be already set up, so I'm just using that one. It's a solo table and works rather well. So, what do you do? So, it's kind of like an adventure type game, actually, here. A living card game. You're going to be using investigators. There are a few of them we'll look at here in just a second. And you're going to build a deck for each of the investigators. And then they're going to go on these adventures in Arkham. If you ever played Arkham Horror, then you'll be very familiar. It's very similar. You're going to be trying to find clues to progress your story along. And as you're doing that, there are bad things that are going to happen, different things coming out of the encounter deck that are going to slow you down and disrupt you. And then you're going to, try to complete your adventure. When you complete your adventure, you're going to earn rewards, and then you can go on to the next adventure. So if we look at what we're going to be doing here, we're going to be playing Night of the Zealot, Chapter 1, The Gathering. You can see they have Chapter 2, The Midnight Mask, and Chapter 3, The Devouring Below. Then you can play on either easy difficulty, standard difficulty, hard difficulty, or expert difficulty. And basically what happens is you can see over here on the right-hand side there are a number of tokens inside the bag. And when you grab a token out, it's going to determine how well you do on different tests and results. This is a skull token. That is bad. So can we shuffle this? Shuffle that up a couple times. And let's drag out another one here. Let's see. I keep grabbing the same one. I'm going to have to check and find out. I wonder if we have to actually drag this over. There we go. Let's drag this over. 15 standard difficulty. Night of the Zealot. Is that what we're doing? Night of the Zealot. Okay. Sounds good. I'm not sure what this one is. Let's just, oops. It's probably locked. Let's see. Yeah, it's locked. Let's just move this guy. Oops. No, I want to grab the whole bag. Can I grab the whole bag? How do I grab the whole bag? Maybe we just ignore the bag. So, let's just see. How do we shuffle? Shuffle a few times and see if that fixes the issue here. There we go. Oh, we got us a new token this time. And each one of these different tokens will do different things. We'll have to shuffle. Alright, see if we can get us a different... Whoop. Let's lock it back in place here. There we go. Shuffle a couple times. There we are. So -1 to our result, etc. So here you have +1, 0, 0, -1, -1, -1, -2, -2, -3, -4, Then there are some various tokens we will look at in a bit. Basically, those tokens will tell you what's going on by using the card there. So, yeah. So let's look at the turn sequence here. Oops, still getting used to the camera here a little bit. Let's rotate a little bit. There we go. So here's the round sequence. So basically the mythos or all the bad things happen, but you skip that during the first round. Then the investigators are going to take their turn, and then the enemy's going to take their turn. Then you got some upkeep phase, and here's the different actions. Each character can do 3 actions during their turn. Actions are drawing a card or gaining a resource, playing a card, activating an ability on a card, moving to a connecting location, investigating, fighting or engaging an enemy, attempting to evade, and there are some free actions that can happen. If you engage with an enemy and spend an action to do anything other than fight, evade, or play a parlay or resign ability, each enemy engaged with you makes an attack of opportunity. So that's basically, if you're familiar with the Lord of the Rings living card game, it's kind of similar. There are some major differences between them, which we'll talk about here in a second. All right, so we need 2 investigators. You can play with up to 4 investigators. It does scale rather well because if you look at the cards here, for example, the study here, you can see it has 2, and I'll use my little zoom in thing there. 2 and a little person head, which means 2 clues per investigator. So if you had 2 investigators, you put 4 clues on here. If you had 4 investigators, you put 8 clues on here. So that's how that, how you can scale the game. You can play with 1 investigator, 2, 3, 4. I'm playing solo, but I'm going to play with 2 investigators. Here's our adventure, which we're going to look at in the next episode. So let's look at our investigators, shall we? There are several investigators that come in the core box. And we'll start here at the bottom and we'll work our way to the top. So there are basically different classes in this game. And we'll look at Agnes Baker here. And there are different colored cards. You can see here there's purple, there's red, there's like a brown, the blue, a green, and another group of red. Not sure why that person has set up 2 groups of red, but I'm sure there's a reason. So if you choose a character, you have the stats of the character up here. So there's 5, I'm trying to remember, but they're like the brain, what's the willpower maybe, 5 will, 5 knowledge. Then there's 2 intellect, 2 fighting, and 3 evade, I think are the different stats there. And you're going to use these different stats for different things. Obviously combat, investigating, for getting clues, evading, etc., etc. So there's your stats. Each hero has powers, and they have a certain amount of life level, wounds, and horror that they can take before they're defeated. So Agnes here has 6 and 8. If you're interested in deck building, obviously a living card game is all about deck building. We can flip over this card and you can see all the information about this character. So deck size is 30 and only 30 for this character, and most of the characters are this way. And the deck building options are Mystic cards, which are the purple ones. She can have level 0 through level 5. And then Survivor cards, you can have level 0 through 2. And neutral cards, level 0 through 5. So all these cards you see on the table over here are all level 0 cards. As you go through the adventures, your character is going to earn experience points, and you can buy upgraded cards. If we zoom in on one of these, you can see that inside the little circle is a certain amount of pips, and each of these pips costs a experience point to upgrade. So if we wanted the Disc of Ismana, It would take 2 experience points to put this into your deck, and of course you have to follow all the restrictions based upon your character card that tells you what kind of class cards you can use. So obviously Mystic, she can use anything from level 0 to 5, which is the purple ones, and level 0 to 2 only for survivor cards. Survivor cards are which color are survivor cards? Let's see if I can find the. Not sure what color the survivor cards are. I'm wondering if these are red, because that's why she has the red one, or the person that set this up, I believe, has set that up this way. If we come up to the lady up at the top here, Wendy Adams, let me flip her over. She uses survivor cards levels 0 through 5 and rogue cards. Yeah, so the survivor cards must be red, the rogue cards are green. Blue is, we'll get to that one here in a second. So that's how you build your cards. You're going to have 30 cards in your deck. You can use these restrictions on what cards you can include, and then you include some extra cards on top of the 30. So you do not count these towards your deck sides, and they are the Heirloom of Hyperborea, a Dark Memory, and 1 random basic weakness. So these are the other cards. So if we choose Agnes here, we're also going to include these 2 cards inside our 30 card deck, and then we have a deck down here of 10 basic weakness cards, which are bad things, cause all kinds of problems. So let's flip her back to the other side here and look at what bonus she has. So in this case, this little symbol means it's a free reaction, so it doesn't cost you an action to do it. It's like a reaction trigger, I think is the actual term for it. So after 1 or more horror is placed on Agnes Baker, deal 1 damage to an enemy in your location, limit once per phase. So when a horror gets placed on her, if there is an enemy in her location, she can do 1 damage to it. And as she pulls the Elder Sign, which is a good token in the bag, there's only 1 of those, as you can see down here in the bottom right-hand corner, the little star. You get +1 for each horror on Agnes Baker. So she had, say, 4 horror tokens on her. She would get +4 to her test when she pulls out the Elder Sign, which is obviously a good thing. All right, so that's basically her power. Pretty interesting power. And of course, she gets 2 items with her. First one is the Heirloom of Hyperborea. It's the amulet from another life. It's a cost 3 asset. It'll also allow her to put cards into tests. That's what these little icons on the side are. So if you're doing a intellect test, I think that's the intellect. I'm gonna have to double check that. But if you're doing the brain test, which she's already got a 5, she could add this card to it and get +1, but you don't get the effect of the card. We'll see that when we see gameplay. And of course, each of the cards will have little tokens on the side. If your hero is doing it, you can add any number of cards. Other heroes in your location can only add 1 card to the test. So sometimes if you're going up and you really, really need to pass the test, you need to make sure you complete it. You can throw in extra cards to get bonuses to your skills. So right now she's a 5, and if she was to throw this in, it would give her +1 to make it 6. There is this question mark one, which means it's a wild as well. So you could use it as a wild. So if this card is in her deck, it's an item, it's a relic. It can only go into her deck, and another free reaction. After you play a spell card, you're going to draw a card. And each item will have a location. So obviously you can see this is like a neck item. so she can only have one neck item at a time on, so she might need to make some decisions. So that's kind of like a good bonus card, and then of course each hero has kind of a bad bonus card. So they get like a good bonus card to add to their deck and a bad one. So hers is Dark Memory, weakness. It's a spell. Place one doom on the current agenda. This effect can cause the current agenda to advance. And forced, if Dark Memory is in your hand at the end of your turn, reveal it and take 2 horror. So bad things, but of course, taking 2 horror will activate her ability. So that might not be that bad of a thing, but of course, if she gets up to 8 horror, she'll be defeated in this scenario. All right, let's look at the next hero here, Daisy Walker. I'm going to flip her over to the other side. There we go. So we can see, again, deck size 30, deck building options, Seeker cards, which are the brown ones from level 0 to 5, Mystic cards from level 0 to 2, so she can use some purple, just the lower level purple ones, and some nice brown cards, any level, and neutral cards, any level. All cards are only level 0 to 5 at this point. Deck building requirements, again, do not count these in your deck size, is Daisy's tote bag and the Necronomicon, and one basic weakness, which is pretty standard for all the heroes in the core set. They're going to get a good item, a bad item, and then a weakness. So Daisy's tote bag, again, it's a cost 2 asset. Some icons here on the side. It's an item, Daisy Walker deck only. You have 2 additional hand slots, which can be used to hold tome assets only. So that's a good thing. So, you know, she has lots of items in her hands. She can use this to add a couple more that she can hold more tomes. And here's the Necronomicon. It's an asset, no cost, weakness, item, and it's a tome, so she could use her book to hold this in another slot. Revelation, put the Nomicron into play in your threat area with 3 horror on it. It cannot leave play while it has 1 or more horror on it. Treat each Elder Sign you reveal as a chaos token, as a, what's it called? Elder Sign. So you basically take the best token and make it the worst token. So you want to get rid of this as soon as you can. And this little double arrow here means it takes an action. So as an action, you can move 1 horror from the Necronomicon to Daisy Walker. Then if Necronomicon has no horror on it, you can discard it. So basically waste a bunch of actions just to get rid of it. And it's going to activate horror, or you're going to put horror on Daisy Walker. Let's see. Let's flip Daisy over and see what she's got. So she's got 3 brains, 5 books, 2 fight, and 2 evade. I'm just not sure what these 2 are called. I keep getting them confused. She's a Mystotonic, and you may take an additional action during your turn, which can only be used on tome abilities. So normally you only get 3 actions. She could take a 4th action as long as it's a tome ability. She draws the Elder Sign. It gives her +0, and if you succeed, you get to draw a card for each tome you control. Wow, that's really good. If you have 3 tomes out, you draw this, you could draw 3 cards. She's got 5 health and 9 sanity. So that's Daisy Walker. 2 additional hand slots. She's got this bad thing. Looks good. All right, let's go up to the next hero here. Roland Banks. He's the Fed, agent, detective, and we'll get to him in a second. Let's flip him over. Again, deck size 30. Guardian cards, which are the blue from level 0 to 5. Seeker cards 0 to 2, which are the brown. And then neutral cards level 0 to 5. Deck building again, you're going to get Roland's 38 special, cover up, and 1 basic random weakness. So again, a good card, a bad card, and a basic weakness, which is again another bad card. So Roland's 38 special. It's a 3-cost asset. Oops, some tokens over here on the side. And it's an item, weapon, firearm. It takes 1 hand slot. Roland banks deck only, uses 4 ammo, so you're going to put 4 tokens on it. For an action, you spend 1 ammo, fight. You get +1 combat for this attack. If there are 1 or more clues at your location, you get +3 instead. This attack deals +1 damage. So good to shoot enemies with. And then his bad card is a treachery, cover-up, weakness, task. Revelation, put cover-up into play in your threat area with 3 clue tokens on it. And then as a free action, when you would discover 1 or more clues at your location, discard that many clues from cover-up instead. So basically you're going to put tokens on here, and instead of finding tokens, clues, like over here on this thing, or any of the other locations that might have clues on them, you're going to have to discard them off of this card first, which is going to be a pain to do, and it's going to slow you down. Forced, when the game ends, if there are any clues on cover-up, you suffer 1 mental trauma. So it's basically like you were defeated, and the next campaign, you would start with, instead of 9 health and 5 sanity, you would lose 1 mental trauma, so you'd only have 4 sanity to start. So it's basically like you got defeated during that encounter. So you want to get rid of cover-up before you complete the adventure. All right, then we have Schizo Tool. He's the ex-con. Let's flip him over to show you his backside. Or not, well, his card's backside. Deck size 30 again. He's going to do rogue cards, which are green. Level 0 to 5. Guardian cards, which are the blue ones. Level 0 to 2. Neutral cards, 0 to 5. Deck building. Again, don't count towards the deck side. On the lam, which is good. Hospital debt, which is bad. And 1 random basic weakness, which is bad as well. On the lam, again, it's a 1-cost asset. Bunch of tokens here on the side. Schizo Tool deck only. Fast. Fast means it doesn't take an action. Play after your turn begins. Until the end of the round, non-elite enemies cannot attack you. So a good way of preventing enemies from doing damage to skids. And his bad thing is treachery. Hospital debts is a weakness task. Revelation, put hospital debt into play in your threat area. And then as a free reaction, you move 1 resource from your resource pool to hospital debts, limit twice per round. So you're going to be using resources to pay off your hospital debts instead of buying cards and bringing things out. And forced, if the game ends, if hospital debts has fewer than 6 resources on it, you earn 2 fewer experience points for this scenario. So you're going to earn a lot less experience points from the scenario if you don't pay off your hospital debts. Bad thing. And then last but not least, Wendy Adams, deck size 30. Survivor cards, which are the red. Level 0 to 5. Rogue cards, which are the green. Level 0 to 2. Neutral cards, 0 to 5. Deck building, do not count. Wendy's amulet, abandoned and alone, and 1 random basic weakness. Pretty standard stuff we've seen so far. Oh, you know what we didn't do is look at, yeah, we did. We didn't look at Schizo Tool front side. So let's flip him back over real quick. So he's a criminal. He's got 2 brains, 3 books, 3 fighting, 4 evade. So pretty quick and decent at both the books and the fighting. Not so good with the brain power. So as a free reaction, during your turn, spend 2 resources. You may take an additional action this turn, limit once per turn. So he spends 2 resources to get an extra action. If he flips over the Elder Sign, he gets +2 to his attack, and if to his test. And if you succeed, you're going to gain 2 resources. So get some resources, get that free action. But you have to spend your resources to get rid of your hospital debt. So pretty interesting combination going on here with Schizo Tool. All right, back to Wendy. Sorry about that. She's got Wendy's amulet, which is good. Abandoned and alone, which is bad. And of course, a random basic weakness, which is bad as well. It's a 2-cost asset, 2 wilds. It's an item and relic when Wendy Adams deck only. You may play the topmost event in your discard pile as if it were in your hand. Okay, so events, pretty good for her as long as it's on the top of her deck. Forced, if you play an event, place it on the bottom of your deck instead of your discard pile. After you play an event, place it on the bottom of your deck instead of your discard pile. If you play, so I'm just trying to figure out how this works. You may play the topmost event in your discard pile as if it were in your hand. Okay, so you got your discard pile, and if an event is on top, you get to play it as if it were in your hand, so you can bring it back into play. But when you play an event, you got to place it at the bottom of your deck instead of your discard pile. Interesting. Okay, so she likes playing events, I guess. Treachery alone, abandon and alone, weakness, madness, revelation. Take 2 direct horror and remove all cards in your discard pile. Oh, that's how. Okay, I was going to say, how are they going to get rid of? So this is like a one-time shot here. She's going to take 2 horror and remove all cards in her discard pile from the game. So you're going to be using your amulet to try and get all these events to play, just like they're in your hand from your discard pile. But if you draw Abandon and Alone, you are not going to see them again because they're going to be removed permanently from the game. So those are the heroes. So the restrictions on the cards obviously are based upon, oh, you know what? We didn't see her front side again. Let's check out Wendy Adams' front side. So 4 brain, 3 book, 1 fighting, so not very good at fighting, 4 evade. So she can evade pretty good, and she can use her brain really good. She's a drifter. She's got a free reaction. Reaction trigger, I think is the technical term. When you reveal a chaos token, choose and discard 1 card from your hand. Cancel that chaos token and return it to the bag. Reveal a new chaos token. Limit once per ability or test. So again, if you pull one of these out, you don't like it, you can discard it with something from your hand, which again is kind of good because you're going to place it in your discard pile. And if it's an event, you can still play it like it's still in your hand. So that's a very interesting combination. Limit once per ability, and then if she draws the Elder Sign, if Wendy's amulet is in play, you automatically succeed, and she's a 7/7. So interesting, very good, very good. So each of these characters play really, really cool and different, and they have some good synergy between their items and their characters' powers and the way they manipulate their deck, which I think is really exciting. I think that's why a lot of people are very excited about this game. So let's talk about cards in the deck. Again, it says, flip this back over. There we go. It says deck size is 30. You can only have 2 cards of any like leather coat here. You can only have 2 copies of any card. Obviously, you can only have 1 of each of these because of the deck building requirements. So you can't have 2 Wendy's amulets or 2 Abandoned and Alone. I think they are specifically designed that way. But 2 of any other card. And of course, since we're just building our character, we're going to use level 0 from the Survivor and the Rogue. I think that's why whoever designed this layout here in Tabletop Simulator designed it so that the red and the green would go with this Wendy. Schizo Tool would be the green and the blue. Roland Banks would be the blue and the brown. Daisy Walker would be the brown and the purple. Agnes Baker would be the purple and the red. Well thought out, well designed. So let's take a look at some of these cards just to kind of give you a gist. What they do, there are a couple different kinds of cards. So you have assets. The cost is up here, and you can notice all the pips are blank. So these are all level 0 cards. Again, you have the little skill bonuses here on the side when you're doing tests. You have some keywords, and then you have some text with it. Normally, this one doesn't have any text, but you see this is a asset item for body. So it's obviously a leather coat, and it's going to give you some bonuses. In this case, it's going to give you 2 health and no sanity. So this means if Wendy goes and takes a health point of damage instead of putting it on herself, she can put it on the leather coat. When either one of these items, either the sanity or the health gets to 0, then that item's removed. We can see that when we look at allies. Let's see if I can find a good ally as an example here. Here's an ally, Leo DeLuca. He's a 6 cost and ally. He's a criminal. You may take an additional action during your turn. He's got 2 health and 2 sanity, so he could take 1 health and 1 sanity and still be alive. But if he takes a 2nd health or a 2nd sanity, he's defeated. You can only ever have 1 ally out at a time. That's the basic rules, unless of course a card comes out that says, you may have an additional ally, but normally you can only have 1 ally, and that's it. So there are, again, assets. These are all assets. Let's see here. There's events. All right, so there's an event, and something will happen. This one happens to be lucky. Fast. Play this if you would fail a skill test. Gain +2 to the skill value for that test. So you can hold this in your hand. If you fail by, say, 1 point, you could play this and then get a +2 to it and pass it. Passing a skill tests are usually very good. Failing them are usually pretty bad for you. So events, we see those, and then there are skills. You can see skills kind of have this little symbol underneath the token there. It does say skill, but this is kind of a reminder. And you can apply these to any skill tests, and they usually give you a bonus if it's successful. So in this case, if this skill test is successful during an evasion attempt, the evading investigator immediately disengage from each other enemy engaged with him or her and may move to a connecting location. So instead of having to disengage from, say you were being attacked by 3 enemies, instead of evading every one of them, you can just evade one of them, play this card if you're successful in your test, and then you can basically get out from all of them. Here's another skill one. You can see the little icon there. Opportunist. It's an initiate. Commit only to a skill test you are performing. If you succeed by 3 or more, return Optimist to your hand after this test instead of discarding it. So that's pretty cool. Gives you plus if you commit it to a test you're performing. If you succeed by 3 or more, you're going to return it to your hand after the test instead of discarding it. So there's assets, there are events, and then there are skills. I think these are the only different classifications. So we've talked about when we looked at the different characters here. Flip this lady back over. 1 basic random weakness. So what you're going to do here, there are 10 weaknesses in the starter deck. And you're going to basically shuffle these up, and then you're going to randomly put one in your deck. What I'm going to do is just let's see if I can draw can I draw just one, please? There we go. And I'm just going to flip it over, just to give you an idea of what they're like. So this one here is amnesia. Let me zoom in so we can see this. Amnesia, treachery, basic weakness, madness. You're not going to know this until you pick it up and put it in your hand. Revelation, choose and discard all but 1 card from your hand. So as soon as you draw this card, it's going to that make you go mad. Discard everything in your hand but one card. So all kinds of bad things. Let's flip this back over and put it back in that deck. There we go. And so all kinds of different things are going to be bad that you're going to add in, and you're not going to know which one they are. Looks like the creator of this module for Tabletop Simulator has also created decks. You can see there are 32 cards. Remember, you get 30 cards to build, and then you're going to add in one good card, one bad card, and then of course we're going to throw a random weakness in here. And once we do that, the deck's ready to go. If we wanted to use this deck, we also have our player cards and our little tokens here as well. So basically, let's go back over to the board here. What we're going to do here is we're going to pull out the cards, and you're going to see what the scenario is doing here if we zoom in here. So Act 1A, Trapped. As you leap to investigate, the door to your study vanishes before your eyes, leaving behind only solid wall. You're trapped inside your study, and until you can find another way out. So if we look at this, it says 2 per person again. I think that's per person. Is that per person? I'll have to double check. Let's see, is that? No, that's per person. That's 2 Doom. I think that's a Doom token. It's hard to see because sometimes the quality on the cards aren't perfect or spot on. So once 2 Doom tokens get on here, this is going to go on to the next part of the adventure. On the other side, we have Agenda 1A. So this is what the investigators are trying to complete. What's going on here? It's late at night. You're holed up in your study, researching the bloody disappearances that have been taking place in the region. A few hours into your research, you hear the sound of strange chanting coming from your parlor down the hall. At the same time, you hear dirt churning as if something were digging beneath your floor. So you can see here 3. So we need to place 3 clue tokens on here. Our investigators need to get 3 clue tokens and be at the same location, and then we can complete this and move on to the next part. Usually, the first adventures are pretty, easy. The Part A here, Part 1, and then Part 2 is a little more difficult, and then Part 3 is a little more difficult. Each adventure also has these, I'm not sure what they're called, but they're basically a guide card for when you draw all these special tokens. So you can see here, if you draw the skull token, you get -X, where X is the number of ghoul enemies in your location. So if you had 2 enemies and you drew this token, you get a -2 to your check. If you draw the, what is this? That's the cultist? Is that what they, I'll have to look at the rule book and get all these terms down. But you get a -1 to your check, and if you fail, you take a horror. And last but not least, if you draw this token, I don't know what this one's called, you get a -2. And if there's a ghoul enemy at your location, you're going to take 1 damage. So each adventure will give you this little card that tells you what happens during it. And you can see some of the things in the bag are just minus and plus and zeros. And then there's other special tokens that'll either fall in this. There's the automatic success token, which is the elder sign. And then the automatic failure, which is the, what's it called? Again, I'll have to get all the terminology down. And then based on the scenario, you'll have a starting location. And this location happens to be the study. So obviously we're locked in our study. The threat of the study is a 2. So if the investigators want to try and get clue tokens, or I'm sorry, if the investigators want to complete this and do a skill challenge to find clues as to why they're locked in their study, the difficulty is a 2. So for example, if we had, let's just choose a hero over here. um, I think you're going to be testing the book for clues. And so in another case, Roland Banks has got a 3. So he's got basically a 3 versus 2. And let's say he draws a 0 out of the bag. He would have a 3 versus 2, and he'd be successful, and he'd get a clue token. And on the card, it tells us, so that's the difficulty of the location, and then over here is the number of clues. In this case, it's 2 per investigator. We're going to play with 2 investigators. Excuse me. So let's get out some clue tokens. Where are the clue ones? Who's our clue tokens? So we'll put 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 clue tokens over there. Both the investigators will start in the study, and then we'll move on from there. Each investigator also starts with 5 resources and 5 cards. The reason I haven't set up cards or investigators is because I want to hear from you guys. You have 24 hours because I'm going to post this video and give you guys a chance to review and watch it, see what you think of it. And if anybody wants me to play a certain character, you post the comment section immediately so that I can get your recommendations. And if you have a certain character you want me to try, then we'll add them into the adventure. If no one posts, then I'll just choose 2 random characters. And of course, my chest is, apologize. Whew. So again, there's Agnes Baker, and her ability is basically going to be placing horror on her to do damage to enemies. We have Daisy Walker, who gets to take an extra action as she's got tomes. And we have Roland Banks. When he defeats an enemy, he's just going to discover a clue at his location. So good at finding clues if he beats up enemies. Schizo Tool, which is spending 2 resources to get an extra action. And then we have, let's flip her over. We have good old Wendy Adams here. Reveal chaos token. You can choose to put it back in the bag and choose another one, and costs you a card out of your hand. So lots of interesting things. So Wendy Adams, Schizo Tool, Roland Banks, Daisy Walker, and Agnes Baker are the main heroes in the core set. If you have a preference, let me know in the comments section. I'll review that before tomorrow. When I post the next part of this, we'll actually get the adventure started. We'll have our characters. We'll talk about how you set up your opening hand, because it's a little bit different than other living card games. And I think that will be it. I think we'll be ready to go. And we'll start our adventure here in Arkham Horror, the living card game, Night of the Zealot, Chapter 1, The Gathering. So thanks so much for watching, guys. We'll see you tomorrow when we take on 2 investigators and see if we can complete this adventure. All right, leave your comments below in the comments section, and we'll see you guys tomorrow night for the start of our Arkham Horror, the card game. See you then.